you can get away with a decent regular season. It will come back to bite you at some point. It's happened to the Blue Jays in the playoffs. It's happened to the White Sox in the past. I've spoken on this ad nauseum. You don't have Bellinger, you don't have enough left-handed slug on this team. I'm doing good. This was pretty interesting today with the owner, Tom Ricketts. I mean, you guys know how it works with owners. They don't do media every day. So this is, one of 2 or 3 times he's going to talk this season. And the bottom line is, in my opinion, he said the quiet stuff out loud. And the quiet stuff is that he and Scott Boras don't have that kind of relationship where they negotiate and come up with deals and have beers afterwards and, all that stuff. It's a cordial relationship, but there's no negotiation between Scott Boras and ownership when it comes to the Cubs and their clients. And, I've said this a bunch of times, written it a bunch of times. It's pretty fascinating to me, and it's maybe a little inside baseball. Maybe we've talked about it before, but they have not signed a Boras client to a multi-year deal in at least a decade. I mean, I had to go back by hand and look this stuff up. And you have to remember, they drafted Chris Bryant, who won an MVP, didn't extend him. They traded for Jake Arrieta, won a Cy Young, didn't offer him a new deal or didn't bring him back. The list goes on and on. So here's Bellinger, yes, a 1-year deal, but they haven't done a multi-year big deal with any Boras client. And remember, he's got a lot of good clients. So again, he said the quiet part out loud, but nothing that we didn't know. They just don't sign those guys because they cost a lot. And I think that Jed Hoyer and Tom Ricketts are kind of on the same page. They're not willing to push their chips all in. Maybe if they get closer to a World Series, but they're not quite there yet. They're not close to it, really.
Okay, before we dig into this whole Ricketts-Boras feud, you work for ESPN. I know ABC and ESPN are partners, but are you ABC 7? Do they do Cubs games? Because I'm super confused why you would have that shirt on. I mean, I know you're a giant Cub fan and you're trying to suck up, so explain.
Stop it.
It just happens that ABC 7's colors are blue, AJ. You know that. You were in Chicago a long time. So we are owned by the same company, so I'll do some local news back in Chicago and, do a package and stand up and all that stuff that we do. So, yes, ESPN, ABC 7, and basically anybody willing to pay my kids' college tuition.
Yeah. I always thought you had a face made for radio, but that's a whole different thing. Here you are on TV everywhere. It's amazing.
Lots of makeup.
All right. But, I mean, there's other teams. The Braves, I think, don't sign Boras guys. There's a few other teams that have had a hard time. So is this just the industry trying to take a shot at Boras? Because it doesn't, there are other teams that haven't done it either. You mentioned the Cubs' long history of not signing Boras clients, and you might mention some of the big names, Arrieta and obviously Chris Bryant. But why not? Is it because he asked too much? Is it because I just talked about the Yankees and Snell, and they're bidding against themselves, it seems like, so they're not going to do it. And the Cubs are just like, we figured this kind of out. We're going to take a step back and make them come to us.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of everything in there. People wonder about that Chris Bryant deal. Who were the Rockies bidding against? I'm still looking for that other team. And they offered him a massive deal that I don't think anybody else was going to do. And kudos to Boras for getting that deal done. But maybe a deal like that, just using that as an example, scares some people off. I don't want to bid against myself. I don't know all the inside baseball maneuverings of these negotiations, but look, he gets a lot of the best players. So those are going to be massive deals. And I do think it takes either an aggressive GM or an aggressive owner to cut a 10-year, $250 million check. And there's certain off seasons you don't have those owners in play. San Diego wasn't in play this year. That's a Boras team. The Nats in the past have been in play, not so much again now. The Yankees, after getting Soto, one of his guys, not necessarily in play. So I think there's a little bit of everything. I think there's some doubts about Bellinger and Snell in particular, despite their great seasons. And that's not me talking. That's other people. I actually think Bellinger more than proved himself last year. So I think there's a combination of factors going on. But, yeah, I think when you see major teams not signing Boras clients, it's probably more than just a coincidence. That much I can tell you. It's more than just a coincidence.
So then what's next for the Cubs? Because they haven't exactly been hot with the pen signing people. Is this offseason going to come to an end in the sense that now we're in spring training? It's still the offseason. opening day, if they don't sign anybody, maybe like a JD Martinez to a 1-year deal, have they done enough to make Cubs fans go, oh, yeah, this is the team that we need?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I've been on your show before. Anybody that listens to me on the radio, anywhere, I talk about left-handed slug like it's, you need it like you need a number one and number two starter. If you don't have left-handed slug, you can get away with a decent regular season. It will come back to bite you at some point. It's happened to the Blue Jays in the playoffs. It's happened to the White Sox in the past. I've spoken on this ad nauseum. You don't have Bellinger, you don't have enough left-handed slug on this team. You just don't. So JD Martinez is fine. They need him. But whatever they do, it won't be enough. It won't, on paper, be a better team than last year. Doesn't mean that the second reign farm system can't produce some stars out of nowhere, the next rookie of the year. Like, surprises would have to happen for the Cubs to have a better season and make the playoffs. And Craig Counsell could be that surprise. Maybe he's worth 5 to 7 wins. But on paper, they're not better without Bellinger, no matter who they bring in, because they will not have enough left-handed slug. And if it's all righties, right-handed pitchers, which dominate the league, will shut you down eventually. So you can get away with it for a while, but eventually that's going to bite you. And that's why he's so valuable to them. But they are willing to walk away from him. And again, maybe they fill it in with a righty, but it's not the same as having a lefty in the middle of that lineup.
You mentioned Craig Counsell, and they went out and paid a boatload for him. What is he saying? We heard from Ricketts. I mean, I know he's going to give manager talk, but is there any rumblings behind the scenes? He's like, man, I got $8 million a year for 5 years. I thought we were going, quote the Red Sox, full throttle, bringing in some dudes to compete for the World Series this year. And honestly, they just, like you said, haven't done enough.
Yeah, I mean, there's no rumblings yet. If this was year 2, he's just getting his feet wet, learning people. But I think in his heart of hearts, he's probably a little surprised. I had heard sort of casually that he had pushed for the Hector Neris signing. That's a 1-year, $9 million deal for reliever. Cubs don't do a lot of those kinds of deals for relievers. So I think he saw his bullpen was a little short and pushed for him. So I asked him straight out, do you think you have enough offense, without Bellinger? And he gave a long answer. And I feel like the longer the answer is, the more you're trying to find the answer, right? It wasn't a direct, oh, we got this guy in right, this guy in left, this guy at first. It was like, eventually he said, we'll have enough. But, they're hopefully putting Christopher Morel at third. They hope he can play there. Michael Busch is the rookie first baseman from the Dodgers they picked up. Their corner outfielders aren't exactly 30 to 40 home run guys in Suzuki or Happ. They're just short on power. They have some at shortstop, but they are short on power, especially without Bellinger. So it's going to be a grind offensively for sure, but they do have some defense and okay pitching staff right now.
Jesse, how much of this has to do with the style of Jed Hoyer compared to Theo Epstein in the past? So I've heard that Theo was the more aggressive one. Jed kind of kept everything in check, maybe more of the long-term thinking, and they balanced each other well. Plus, Theo is, I would assume, very good at convincing his bosses on things that he needs to do, just like a Dombrowski would be in Philadelphia, right? So I get the sense that between Jed and listening to Carter Hawkins do some public interviews, that they keep talking about, a price that kind of meets what we're looking for. They keep trying to talk about bargains versus players that they actually want to go after.
Yeah, no, there's some truth to that. I have this working theory that you either need an aggressive owner and conservative GM or vice versa. Think of David Stearns and Steve Cohn. Think of Andrew Friedman and the Dodgers organization. I think Jed, Carter, and Tom Ricketts, the owner, are kind of similar in styles. And you're right, Theo was more of that gunslinger. But I think also Tom Ricketts saw, look, Jason Hayward deal, these long, and then these other huge deals, Pujols deal, eventually, maybe Bryce Harper's deal won't look great. Who knows? Like Bogart's deal, trade turn. Eventually, these deals, I don't think they have a stomach for them. And I think you're right. And it's a tough question. Do you sign players to deals that today are going to be bad someday? Or do you try to roster build and create something more flexible where you can win consistently every year? I mean, the problem is you can't really win it all without stars. Once in a while you can find that rounded roster that works. But if everyone's paying $200 million, do you pay $200 million? That's the question mark, even if you don't believe in it. Right now, they don't believe in it, and they're not paying that price tag. I don't think there's any chance they sign Cody Bellinger to $200 million this offseason, for example.
Say, is Suzuki going to be an all-star this year? I mean, this is a guy that had a 840 OPS 2 years ago. I picked him to be the rookie of the year. He kind of started out hot, great plate discipline. Game kind of got a little too fast for him throughout the year. Could he get into the 900 OPS? Could he be an all-star this year?
I think it's a great question. Let me say this. Besides maybe Morel, Suzuki probably has the highest offensive ceiling on this team, but we haven't seen it. The guy's in great shape. I stood next to him in the locker, and I looked even weaker and smaller than I normally do. I mean, or felt it, I should say. He is built. He's ready. We'll see. First year, some diet problems, adjusting. Second year, streaky. Like, can he be that consistent 6-month guy who has a great month or two to propel him to the next level? I don't know the answer. I think it's in him. But I need to see it. It's there. The talent's there. He just has to do it for 6 months. And you guys know more than anyone how hard that is. So I'll say that ceiling's high. He just has to reach it.
Okay. We mentioned, we keep talking about Bellinger and the moves. They did make some moves. They brought in some nice pieces to help them try to win this division. But right now, can the Cubs win this division with the way the roster is constructed? Are they a better team than the Reds? Are they better than the Brewers? Are they better than the revamped Cardinals? Can they win this division? And if they do, can they do damage in the playoffs without bringing in some more pieces?
No on the playoffs because, again, that's where you get exposed if you don't have enough left-handed hitting. So I know I'm being very specific, but in general, they're not in the Philadelphia, Atlanta, Dodgers, even Padres if they rebound range. They're just not. But, yeah, they can get in this division. I'm picking the Reds as of today to win the division. I think the Cubs and the Brewers will be right there behind them. I don't know about what the Cardinals are exactly. Are they due for that rebound, or are they due to keep sliding because their position players are getting a little bit older, the corner guys, and we don't know about that starting staff. So I'm not sure what the Cardinals are. I know the Reds are moving in the right direction, and the Brewers should at least be decent. But the Cubs are right there in the mix. I do think the Reds have the most talent, though.
Go ahead, Kratz. You can ask. What's your starting rotation? Let's end with that.
Well, I want to hear what his starting 1-2. You go into a series. And I got burned last year because I picked the Brewers to go all the way because of their 1 through 3 that they had in their starting rotation. And Big Woo went down before playoffs ever even started, and they got slapped in the face by the Diamondbacks. But who are the Cubs? 1-2. Taillon and Steele? I love Justin Steele. I think he is awesome from the left side. But that's your 1-2 going into a series, which your bullpen is going to be depleted because they don't have much other starting pitching? Or am I missing somebody?
No. The only one you'd be missing would be Imanaga, 30-year-old rookie from Japan. But Steele, by default, is your number one. Nearly finished in the finals for Cy Young voting. He just fell off a little bit at the end. So he's clearly their number one. He wouldn't be the number one on a lot of playoff teams. So it's Steele. I would have to put Imanaga second right now and Taillon third with the mainstay Kyle Hendricks, who's been here a decade, 4. And then Jordan Wicks, the lefty changeup guy, and Javier Assad pitched well for Team Mexico last year. That's your 5 and 6. But it's Steele, Imanaga, Taillon, Hendricks, interchangeable there. I mean, they could use Jordan Montgomery. I mean, they could put him right near the top with Steele, and they'd be a lot better off. And so, yeah, this is why it could have a decent regular season. But when you get into playoffs, left-handed slug, starting pitching, lockdown relief core, they really don't have it at elite playoff level. Then again, some people might say the Diamondbacks didn't either. And, certainly Tom Ricketts has pointed the Diamondbacks several times as, hey, just get in and anything can happen. And we know that's true.
What? Diamondbacks had 2 Cy Young candidates, Merrill Kelly and a Cy Young winner, and they had Corbin Carroll, the rookie of the year, with your slug.
Gallen didn't win Cy.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
He's
top three.
He's a Cy guy. I get it. Yeah, this is different. So, Jesse, appreciate the time, dude. All great info. I know you got a lot going on there. Thank you. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon, all right?
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.